Malala Yousafzai, Pakistani activist for female education and rights. Youngest Nobel laureate, Nobel Peace Prize 2014. Author of international bestseller, I Am Malala. Received numerous national and international honors. At an age of 11, Malala Yousafzai had begun to speak out against the school ban and continued to attend her local school conferences. At the age of 14, she was shot in the face. A masked Taliban soldier armed with a rifle boarded the bus and asked, "Who is Malala? Tell me, or I will shoot everyone here." Malala identified herself and the man shot her in the head in front of all the other passengers. Malala survived. Later, the Taliban stated publicly that they will further attempt to murder her. Today, Malala is still alive and actively speaks out against violence and oppression toward women in Muslim countries. Instead of getting life threats and almost dying, she stands by her decision to fight against women oppression, defying all odds against her. You alone are always responsible for the choices you make in tragic, desperate times, though it may appear others are influencing you. Buddha. Gautam Buddha built his own philosophy called Buddhism and shared it with the world. He sat under a tree for 49 days and came to a number of profound realizations. One of those realizations was this, that life itself is a form of suffering. Born about 2,500 years ago, in the present-day Nepal to a king, the king planned that the child would never know a moment of suffering, so he built high walls around the palace that prevented the prince from knowing the outside world. He spoiled the child, fulfilling his every desire. Soon the prince felt that whatever his father gave him, it never seemed enough, never meant anything. So late one night, the prince snuck out of the palace and saw human suffering for the first time. He saw sick people, old people, homeless people, people in pain, even people dying. Seeing these, he found himself in a sort of existential crisis. The prince thought that it was the riches that had made life seem so meaningless. So he left the palace. For years, the prince suffered greatly. He suffered through disease, hunger, pain, loneliness, and decay. He confronted the brink of death itself. The central tenet of his philosophy was, pain and loss are inevitable and we should let go of trying to resist them. Buddha concluded that we all must suffer nonetheless. The rich suffer because of their riches. The poor suffer because of their poverty. People without a family suffer because they have no family. People with a family suffer because of their family. People who pursue worldly pleasures suffer because of their worldly pleasures. People who abstain from worldly pleasures suffer because of their abstention. Pain is an inextricable thread in the fabric of life. Charles Bukowski, a world-renowned novelist and poet, published 6 novels and hundreds of poems, selling over 2 million copies. His first novel was called simply Post Office. In the dedication, he wrote, "Dedicated to nobody." He was an alcoholic, a womanizer, a chronic gambler and a poet. For decades his literary work was rejected by almost every publisher he submitted to, citing that his work was horrible. He worked at a post office. He spent most of his salary on drinking and gambling. At an age of 50, an editor at a small independent publishing house decided to take a chance on him. It was the first real shot Bukowski had ever gotten, and then there was no looking back. It is then strange that on Bukowski's tombstone, the epitaph reads, "Don't try." His success came from the fact that he knew he was a loser, accepted it, and then wrote honestly about it. He never tried to be anything other than what he was. It was his simple ability to be completely honest with himself, especially the worst parts of himself, and to share his failings, without hesitation or doubt. Remain honest with oneself under all circumstances.